Hi everyone, I'm Aarsha Taneja, and today I want to take you inside the teenage ADHD brain. Not the stereotypes, but what's actually happening neurologically and what genuinely helps. By the end of this, you'll understand ADHD less as a behavior problem and more about a difference in how the brain is wired and fueled. So, what is ADHD? It's a persistent pattern of inattention or hyperactivity that significantly disrupts school, work, and our daily routines. It's a lot more common than we think. Among US teens, 1 out of 9 have ADHD. In the world, this ratio does decrease to 5.5%, but it is still very much there. There are three main symptoms of how people express ADHD. Some people are inattentive, for example, they daydream, lose track of things, and drift off mid task. Some people are hyperactive slash impulsive, they fidget and interrupt and act before thinking. And the most common one is a combination of them both. I want you to hold on till the end of the presentation that ADHD is about the different wiring of the brain and not about not trying hard enough. Fun fact, even animals can express similar symptoms like ADHD, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention, even though they don't have it. It's normally classified as canine dysfunctional behavior or hyperkinesis. Let's zoom into the actual autonomy. Three regions do the most of the heavy lifting in the brain. First, the prefrontal cortex. Think of it as the brain's CEO. It's in charge of planning, weighing consequences, holding information in your head while you use it, and putting the brake on impulses. Second, the basal ganglia. This is more like your brain's gear shifter. It helps you smoothly switch from one thought or action to the next instead of getting stuck or jumping around randomly. And third, the cerebellum, which most people associate with balance, but it also involves timing, which is our internal sense of how much time has passed. This is why time can feel so slippery with ADHD. The big picture involves all three. In ADHD, these regions tend to mature more slowly, and the connections between them are less efficient. It's not that anything is broken or missing. The brain is just running on a different timeline and a wiring pattern. Two neurotransmitters matter the most here. Dopamine, which is the brain's motivation and reward molecule. It's what makes a task feel worth doing. Norepinephrine is more about the alertness. It helps the brain stay switched on and tuned in. In ADHD, there's often lower dopamine available in the exact circuits that drive motivation and sustained focus. And this explains something a lot of people misread as laziness. A boring, low stimulation task like homework or filling out a form can feel almost physically impossible to start. But something high interest or urgent, like a video game, a deadline, or a crisis, gets full focus without any effort at all. That's not inconsistency or manipulation. That's a chemically undersignaled motivation system responding exactly the way you'd expect it to. Your brain has what's called a default mode network, or DMN. That's the network that lights up when your mind wanders, daydreams, or drifts to unrelated thoughts. And it has a task positive network, or TPN, which activates when you're focused and doing work on task. In a typical brain, these two act like a seesaw. When a TPN switches on, the DMN quiets down, so your attention stays put. In ADHD, however, that switch is leaky. The DMN keeps bleeding into moments when you're supposed to be focused, which is a big part of why your attention can feel like it's being constantly hijacked, even when you genuinely want to concentrate. These two networks that aren't handling off control cleanly makes it seem like a failure of effort even when it definitely isn't. Here's the piece that's specific to teenagers. In every single human brain, the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully finish developing until the mid 20s. Meanwhile, the emotional and reward driven parts of the brain mature way earlier, around the mid teens. So every teenager is already walking around with a powerful emotional engine and the impulse control system that is still under construction. Now add ADHD on top of that, which brings its own lag. Layer hormonal changes and intense social pressure, and you get amplified impulsivity with emotional reactivity that can feel overwhelming for the teen and the people around them. I want to be really clear about the takeaway here. This is a timing issue in the brain development. It is not a character flaw, it's not a character flaw, and it's not a parenting failure. It's biology on delay. Second, exercise. And this isn't your just classic advice of go for a walk. Physical activity naturally boosts dopamine and norepinephrine, the exact chemicals we talked about earlier. So it's almost like building a built in tuning system for the brain's focus. Third, sleep hygiene. Sleep deprivation literally makes every ADHD symptom worse. So protecting sleep is one of the highest leverage things a team can do. And fourth, cognitive behavioral therapy and coaching. These build executive function skills gradually, giving teens concrete tools for planning, time management, and emotional regulation instead of just willpower alone. Now, for the medical side, stimulant medications, things like methylphenidate and amphetamine based medications, are the most common and most researched treatment. They work by increasing the availability of dopamine and norepinephrine in the brain, directly addressing that undersignaled motivational and focus system. For people who don't tolerate stimulants well, there are non stimulant options which work through different pathways and can come with fewer stimulant type side effects over time. But here's the key point: research consistently shows that combining medication with behavioral therapy outperforms either approach on its own. And just as importantly, every treatment plan is individualized. What works well for one teen might not for another, and that's completely normal. So let's bring it all together. ADHD is a brain based difference in wiring and chemistry, not a discipline problem and not a lack of caring. On top of that baseline, the teenage brain adds its own development timing challenges since the impulse control system is still years away from finishing its wiring. The good news is that effective management isn't about picking up one fix. It's about blending lifestyle strategies like structure, exercise, and sleep with evidence based treatment like therapy and, when appropriate, medication. My hope is that understanding the why behind ADHD makes the how of managing it feel a lot less overwhelming for teens and for everyone that's supporting them. Thank you so much for listening to me, Aarsha Taneja, about my presentation ADHD in teens.